Hello and welcome. I'm Danette Kubanda, and joining me today for a very special interview is Randy Rolfe. She is the best-selling author of 9 books on parenting, nutrition, and family. She's also an educator, speaker, counselor, and online podcast and course creator on health and happiness. Her most recent book is The Single Ingredient Diet: Transform Your Relationship to Food in Just 21 Days. Thank you so much for being with us, Randy.
Thank you, Danette. It's my pleasure.
So, Randy, your most recent work is focused on diet and healthy eating habits. With a background in law practice, family therapy, theology, and nutrition, why is this your main focus today?
Well, I love that question because I have such a broad background, but I had a wonderful childhood. I traveled every summer around the world and I saw, why are people making war? So I wanted to become a lawyer to be an international diplomat. But then I met my husband and thought, well, I won't have much of a marriage or a family if I'm jumping all over the world. And so I settled down to more local practice. But meanwhile, I wanted to keep us healthy for a long life. And so I taught myself to cook, and then I learned what I should be cooking, and I educated myself. And then 10 years later, I got certified in nutrition while I was practicing law. And my fellow lawyers started asking me how I knew all this and how they should prepare because of their stressful lives for their lawsuits. So I helped them, and eventually, when I had my own kids, I'm like, the key to a healthy family, healthy community, healthy world is actually right at home. And so my fellow parents started asking me why our family life was going so well. So I wrote my first book on parenting and eventually quit law to teach this all the time. I actually studied theology later to add a whole spiritual dimension, because when I was working with families, I found it really helped for them to know that we're all programmed by a creator to get along. It's just if we're eating poorly, we feel terrible, we get irritable, we get tired, and families have more problems. So it's all about getting good food for your body and your mind. And I changed whole families by just getting them to eat right when they thought they were at 6s and 7s all the time. But it was because they were tired and irritable and eating junk food.
And, there's already a lot of talk about food and diet out there in the world. What do you add to that conversation?
Really like people to understand the whole food system so they understand what's being done to their food. It's not their fault that they choose the sugary things, because the ultra processed foods actually make them have low energy, and they get on kind of a roller coaster, wanting some easy energy every couple of hours. So I wanted them to really understand. So that's where my legal background came in when I teach nutrition, because the food processors and lobbyists really influence what the government regulators say. And it's very hard to get the government regulators even to tell you how bad the ultra processed diet is for our health and our mental health too. So I have added all of that to my courses, to my book, of them understanding. Like, even um, people don't realize that the tobacco companies have a lot in common with the food processors, because they were experts in flavoring and how to get people to smoke more. And they actually, in the early 90s, they were getting into food processing because they were the experts on flavorings and addictive chemicals. They got out of it when they realized they were probably going to get sued for what ultra processed foods are doing to us. So that's that kind of edgy information that makes it easier for people to understand why they're being manipulated, how they're being manipulated.
Oh, it's fascinating. What other myths would you like to bust for us?
Oh, well, My favorite really is that we're getting chronic disease because we're living so much longer. And you'll hear somebody say, oh, the average age used to be 40. Well, that's because there were so many deaths in childhood, and statistically, it ends up at 40. But if you look at history, which I'm a history buff, you'll see leaders that go way back that lived to 80 or 90 or whatever. And our first couple of presidents lived past 90. So it's at the age 50, you we've only added, if you live to 50, we've only added 10 years of life in the last century. And today, that last 10 years, you might be on 7, 8 drugs and feel debilitated. But that we don't have to do that if we're feeding the body correctly with real food. And the other myth is that our bodies are going to break down after 40. No, they don't have to. That's just because you've had 20 years of poor diet and not giving your body what it really needs.
Absolutely. So what would you say would be your number one tip for how we can help ourselves and our families live a longer, healthier life?
Well, the fun answer is to stop reading the long ingredient lists because they kind of make us complacent that somehow all those chemicals are okay for us. They're not. And the real answer is to just get single ingredient foods that your great grandmother would recognize as food and take them home, learn to prepare them. It's not hard, just a few simple techniques, and you can get real food and it tastes so good. You don't have to doctor it because your body recognizes real, organic, whole food is much more satisfying to the body.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Randy. To learn more about Randy, her books, and all of her projects, I'm going to share 2 websites. The first is singleingredientdiet.com, and the second, randyrolfe.com. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Danette. Loved it.